We meet the man behind the 4-hour body, the 4-hour work week, countless thought-provoking interviews and episodes with his immensely popular self-titled podcast. And he doesn't know this, but even a little eating routine from his 4-hour body was actually favored by Steve Frazier of the Greco-Roman national team when he was the national team coach. Several wrestlers used that. I also spent some time on what we call the bean diet, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, we're talking about these guys and what they've done in their life, their world. An author, an entrepreneur, a wrestler, an Ivy Leaguer from Princeton. Our first panelist, Mr. Tim Ferriss.
But were there any that really stand out to you as surprising?
Another one is, don't be a donkey.
We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Thank you very much.
Lights you up like a Christmas tree?
Lights you up like a Christmas tree.
You can do almost everything you want in life, but you can't do it at the same time.
Our next panelist is a man amongst universal stars. He is a big one here. He may be marginally bigger, at least in name and reputation, than Canis Majoris and Stevenson 218 and Sirius, the 3 stars I actually know how to pronounce. He's the guy that made science cool again to a lot of us. He's know it's been cool forever. And a man, when you watch out for him, beware of his double title lock. A native of New York City, where he wrestled at the Bronx High School of Science before heading to compete on the mats at Harvard, the host of Star Talk, and someone again is almost always the smartest guy in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Well, not all scientists ever have the privilege of answering alone the grand questions of science, but it's the grand questions that are the carrot, the intellectual carrot that's put out there that actually seduce people to wanting to do science in the first place, and they keep you going all throughout the journey.
Hi, I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, your personal astrophysicist.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, everybody. Know him from his work on Cosmos, Star Talk, and his many books.
You are my most frequent guest, and I think maybe my favorite guest.
Oh. What you're doing is you're making learning interesting, and that's why it's so fun. Things get silly, but they're also curious, and you're getting these experts, and everyone's talking about these various subjects.
Life is made of organic ingredients.
Correct.
They were manufactured in the cores of stars.
So it's not like you're out in the universe looking up and you say, yeah, I'm alive in this universe, but I feel small. The universe is alive within you, and you should feel large.
I wish that was common knowledge, that what you just said right there is so important.
The universe is not only weirder than we have imagined, it may be weirder than we can ever imagine. I bask in our collective ignorance on the frontier of the unknown. Look behind me and say, hey, we got that. And look in front of me and say, we have no idea what that is. What keeps me awake at night is the prospect that we could be on the heels of a major discovery, answering a question that we might have posed already, but possibly revealing a question we had not previously known to ask.
Finally, a man who, again, we mentioned earlier, had his international launching pad come right here at Beat the Streets. In 2011, he picked up a struggling USA Wrestling freestyle program and carried it when we needed it the most. A native of Sicklerville, New Jersey, a Dan Hodge Trophy winner, a 2-time Division I champion, who has had internationally won 6 world titles, 9 world medals, and stood at the top of the podium in London in 2012. He's probably my favorite JB as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Burroughs.
One last push from his foe. Burroughs pushing his man away. He said, all I see is gold. Now the world will see gold around his neck. Jordan Burroughs, an
God is
Olympic
king, we the
champion.
soldiers. Ultra beam out the solar. When I get to heaven's gate, I ain't gotta peek over. Keeping perfect composure. When I scream at the chauffeur, they ain't mean, I'm just focused. I ain't mean, I'm just focused. Put them lean out slower. Got us clean out of soda. Before the flood, people judge. They did the same thing to Noah. Everybody wanted Yandi. And Jesus Christ did the laundry. They say the week start on Monday, but the strong start on Sunday. Won't be in bondage to any man. John 8:33. We the descendants of Abraham. Ye shall be made free. John 8:36. To whom the Son set free.
And I'm gonna cherish this one for a long time. Even if I never wrestle another match in my life, I feel like I'm certified. I'm certified. I'm a legend in this sport, and no one can take that away from me.
We talk about talented people. You know, talented people are talented because 99% of it is because of the work they put in to create that talent. When I look at Jordan Burroughs, I look at a very motivated, very disciplined athlete that thinks about winning constantly. What they're doing on the mat, the difference is a lot of what they're doing off the mat, what they're doing in their downtime, what they're doing in their off time. You know, that's what makes Jordan Burroughs good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for coming to this event. I'm so thrilled to be on stage with these two fine gentlemen. A little intimidated, not gonna lie. Don't let my intro video fool you. I forgot to pack socks, hence this fashion decision. And my first question is actually one of fashion. Neil, could you please explain your footwear, the story behind this?
Oh, yeah. So I was getting dressed for this evening, and I opened my closet, and like a beam of light shone down on my old wrestling shoes. And I said, maybe I should wear those tonight. And so I reached for them, and then I put one on, and it was like, ah! I felt like angels were singing. I hadn't felt these, just what it feels like on your foot. It's different.
The velvet embrace.
It's just different. And so I'm wearing them tonight. I hope nobody minds. That's what that is. Yes.
So I want to operate from a place of starting at the beginning, since some people in the room will have a lot of context, some will have less. Jordan, could you please just tell the story of how wrestling came into your life?
Yeah, for sure. It's a unique story because wrestling is typically based on tradition, on pedigree, right? Like if your dad wrestled, you're wrestling. Mm-hmm. Your older brothers wrestled, you're wrestling. And so I was a youngest of four. I was a small kid growing up. I was a run of the family. I started when I was 6. My first weight class was actually 45 pounds.
That's a thing? That's a weight category? That's not on the moon where you weigh 45 pounds.
45 pounds, okay. Neil. I was a little guy. I was so small you had to cross the straps on my singlet. Because it was baggy. It was crazy. But what was cool about it was one of the few sports you didn't have to be big in stature in to be successful. And I was a big fan of the WWF when I was a kid, right? So Macho Man, Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, those were my favorite guys. It wasn't Kale and Dan Gable and Kenny Monday. It was actually the guys that I saw on TV every Monday and Thursday night. So I got a flyer from my local youth wrestling program to come and join. And when I got there, I'm expecting a ring and guys getting hit with chairs and slammed through tables. But it was unique. When I got there, it was just mats laid across the cafeteria floor, but I loved it right away. In my very first tournament, I won a participation trophy, and it hooked me. And so participation trophies are good, right? I know we're kind of in this opposition to participation trophy culture.
Unless you're in the Olympics, where gold is better.
That's right, that's right. But when I won that when they gave me that participation trophy, it was unique because I never won anything. And as the youngest of four, it gave me kind of finally a head above the rest of my siblings. I remember going home and seeing the pride that my mom had, putting it on the top of our our fireplace at home and just being like, yeah, I'm the man. It was cool. So before every tournament, my dad would take me to the trophy room, and he'd show me all the trophies that would be given out throughout the day. And he'd say, you see that one right there? If you win 2 of your matches today, you'll get that one. That's the 3rd place. See the one next to it, a little bit taller? That's 2nd place. You win 3 of your matches, you get that one. And then you see the tallest one over there in the trophy? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you win all of your matches, you'll get that one. That's the 1st place trophy. And so that was my journey. And so now, 30 years later, here we are.
You know, I was going to say you look bigger than 45 pounds. I threw my arm around the shoulders.
I've gained a little bit more than 45 pounds since then. A little bit bigger.
So, Neil, I'm going to ask the same question. Just origin story.
Wait, before you leave this guy, look, seeing these images of you, did you model for Rodin's thinking sculpture? Were you his
Neil, I appreciate that. I tell you what, I've got 5 little ones at home, so my wife thinks I'm very sexy.
Okay. Just wondering. Yeah.
I'm going to hold back. We only have 30 minutes. I have 5 follow-up questions related to that particular comment. But, Neil, so
Sir.
Origin story as it relates to wrestling, and then any particular lessons you remember that were imparted by wrestling, could be a story, or by a coach.
Yeah. So my origin story is not that complicated. I'm in high school, and I heard that there are scholarships for wrestling, perhaps more so than in other sports. Colleges were looking to build their wrestling teams, and I just wanted to improve the chances I would get to college and possibly even get to pay for it. So when the flyer came out, wrestling team tryouts, I didn't know much about wrestling other than wrestling my brother. And so once I learned the methods and form and what it means to wrestle and what the goals are and what kind of physical fitness it required, it became second to astrophysics as the biggest challenge of my life. Yeah, I played basketball just as a kid in the Bronx. You do things, and some of that is hard, but you don't know hard until you've wrestled. In fact, I've done this experiment. Maybe you've also done it. If you haven't, I invite you to do so. Go up to someone who's physically fit and ask them, what's the hardest physical sport you've ever done? And you will get any one of a dozen answers. Oh, cross-country skiing, or the marathon, or rowing, or if they have wrestled, the answer is wrestling. Period. And so when I realized what impact this was having on my body, I said, wow, I have never been so tired and exhausted, and I loved it. It was a challenge to ascend to. Think about how often people say, oh, take an easy class so you can get an A, do this easy. There's so much we're told to do that's easy, so that at the end you feel like you did something good. But there's no greater feeling than accomplishing something that's hard. That's a quote from John F. Kennedy as President of the United States. We're going to the moon. He says, we choose to do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. And so I was hooked ever since. I became captain of my school's team, and in competition I was undefeated in high school. But then I got to college, and I'm wrestling these boys from the Midwest, corn-fed. Yeah, I'm saying, you know what I'm talking about. They'd be like carrying the calf out of the barn. Where should I put the calf, Ma? And it's like, okay. So I had a losing record for most of my years in college, but didn't matter. Didn't matter to me. I liked it. And if you lost, you got beat. Pure and simple. You can't blame, oh, you didn't catch that ball I threw to you, or that was you missed that shot, that's why we lost. No, if you lose, you lost. Oh, the ref. Presuming honest refs. So if you lose, you just get beat. And so the singularity of that, the responsibility that falls upon your shoulders, not on the team, not on anybody else, the singularity of that for me was transformative in terms of my accountability, in terms of my ambitions, in terms of achieving something that's hard. There's no substitute for it. And anytime it's true for all of us, I'm sure. When I see a wrestling match, I'm like, I'm in the match. I'm like, you know, there's a vicarious relationship with the mat. Yeah. And so it's been with me my whole life. I wish I had more occasion to express it. But
I bet there's some people in the room you could take on that mat.
We got a wrestling mat right here, Neil.
And just real quick, I was taller than most of my opponents, which means I was not as strong. If strength is the cross-section of your muscle area, and I'm taller and we're the same weight, I am not as strong. But I'm pretty quick, and I have very long reach. So I can ankle pick you like that, okay? I don't care where you're at.
Prove it.
In my day, I could ankle pick. I got this.
He's got the shoes on. He came dressed for the mat. If you have any judoka here, he also has the lapels. So, Jordan, I do have a question for you about setbacks and what you've learned from setbacks or losses. Now, I want to just share a little bit of context, and before you think, this is an interviewer who really talks a lot. The organizers asked me to share some of my own stuff, so blame them. But I want to say I was struck by, minus the gold medal and many other things, how similar our origin story was. I was very, very small. Growing up, had a lot of health issues, and I could not compete in other sports. I would just get demolished and demoralized. I could not win. And I was also very hyperactive, and a friend of my mother's was like, put that kid in kiddie wrestling. And that was a moment, that was a decision that changed my entire life. And I think, much like what you said, Neil, even though I was not the world's best wrestler, I did not have tons of accolades. Did pretty well in high school, but ultimately ended up shifting to other things in college, mostly judo, because I spent time in Japan. That moment changed everything because I developed confidence through winning something, anything. It was the puny kid against the puny kid. Great, finally. The scales are leveled in some respect. And it taught me how to deal also with adversity, because you have, as you said, no one to blame. You get a lot of credit or you get the opposite of that, depending on the outcome. And leading from that then, could you speak to learning from adversity, setbacks?
Yeah, you know, Tim, losing makes you relatable, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's a curse. It's honestly a curse, right? I've won 7 world championships, but I'm always thinking about the ones that got away. And so you're never truly satisfied. I think back to 2012. I was Olympic gold medalist in London, and immediately after you win an Olympic gold medal, you put the medal on, they whirl you off after they, you know, raise the flag higher than all other countries. You sing the national anthem, your family's crying, everyone's excited. And so you go back and you do this media tour. You're doing interviews, you're talking to Sports Illustrated and ESPN and CNBC, and then all of a sudden, I find myself on a one-way flight from London Heathrow to LAX, and I'm gonna be on the Jay Leno show. Right, so I'm doing all these special things. We touch down in LAX. There's all these reporters and cameras everywhere, and they're looking at, like, man, all these Olympians are coming out.
For everyone younger than 30, that's the Tonight Show.
That's it.
Jay Leno.
So,
okay, yeah.
You know, one of the things that's unique about it is there's cameras everywhere, and there's balloons, and there's families all waiting in the baggage claim of the airport. And so everyone's excited to see the Olympians touch down back on the United States soil for the first time. And everyone's pulling out their medals. Like, man, we got a bronze over here. We got a silver over here. And I'm like, I want a gold. And so I pull out my gold. They're like, he's got a gold. All the cameras come and they focus on me. And it was a really cool moment. It was exciting. But then I kind of juxtapositioned that with what happened in 2016. I made the Olympic team in Rio. And I left the tournament medalist. And so I remember taking the same flight home back to Lincoln, Nebraska. Wasn't invited to be on the Tonight Show. And I remember when I touched down, there was no one there at the airport. It was a normal day. It was quiet. And I didn't even bring my car to the airport. I had to take a taxi home. And I just remember the silence of that ride. It was very humbling. And it was a sobering experience for me to go from the top of the world, going straight to be on TV and tell everyone about this medal that I just won. And then having nothing and no one there waiting. I think the biggest difference between winning and losing is how people treat you afterwards. Performance is what I try to focus on as a competitor. And I think that the lessons that I've learned from wrestling make me relatable because everyone can't win all the time. Wrestling is a lot like life. You struggle, you get beat up, you have to find a way to dust yourself off, get better, and try to reverse your fortunes next time. Get back in the game. And it's hard. It tests your merit. And the difficulty, though, that I've learned is that everything that I do in life moving forward has been prepared by other things that I've learned in wrestling. So now, as the father of 5, the beauty is I get to teach them what I do. What I love about it is everyone says, man, what are your sons going to do? Are they going to wrestle? Or are you going to let them create their own journey and do their own thing and find another sport? I'm like, absolutely not. They're wrestling. That's why I have so many kids. I'm like, more kids, more wrestlers. And so, you know, when I think about it, is in ancient times, you know, young men did the work of their father, right? If your dad was a carpenter, you were a carpenter. If your dad was a blacksmith, you were a blacksmith. Only in this late generation do we allow this independence and autonomy to go out and discover what you want to do on your own. But I'm the best in the world at wrestling. It would be a travesty if I let my sons out the house without teaching them something that I'm the best in the world at. And so for me, the journey is they have so much more access than I had. Right? I grew up in a middle-class family. My dad was a construction worker. My mom was a pension processor at a local 332, a union in Philadelphia. And so I had to work hard. I had to build and develop these intangibles, grit, toughness, persistence. And my kids have so much more than me, right? They're asking me to cut the corners off of their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I'm like, bro, listen, you eat the sandwich this way, you ain't eating the sandwich. I'm not slicing any more apples. I'm not cutting any more edges off of the bread. But the best way to replicate difficulty is through struggle. And the best sport in which you can struggle is wrestling. And so all of my kids will wrestle. All of my kids will wrestle, both men and women. My girls and boys, they all wrestle. And it's been cool to watch them develop because it's hard and it's tough and it takes a lot of grit and determination. And I love it. And so they have to lose. They have to get beat up, choked out, slammed, and learn to rebuild. It's going to help them with the rest of their lives.
So follow-up question with that. I agree with that 100%. Let's say one of your kids, in your mind's eye, you can pick one. They've had some early, I wouldn't say luck, also skill development, great teacher, and then they have a loss that really crushes them on some level. And they come home. What do you say to them?
You know, I honestly, Tim, I try to make a joke about it. When my son loses, I make a joke about it every time. Like, damn, that guy was good, wasn't he? And he's like, yeah, Dad, he was good. You know, how we've built our club. So we established a club in South Jersey, the All I See Is Gold Academy. And how it started was when we first moved here from Nebraska, we were looking for clubs. We're traveling 45 minutes every day trying to find a place for my son to train. Until eventually I'm like, I know too much to just sit in the stands. I need to teach. But every time he'd lose, I'd go over to the opposite corner and I'd introduce myself to the dad of the kid that just beat him. And I'd say, hey, my name's JB. Would you mind coming to train with us? And of course, me being who I am, they're like, absolutely. And so slowly we started to build a reputation and build better kids and start to develop a community. But what I've noticed is there's a lot of pressure for them to develop because when they wrestle, people stop and watch. And that's hard because I never had that. My dad didn't wrestle, so he was just like principled. Work hard, don't cry if you lose, and, you know, express sportsmanship. For my kids, things are a lot different. They realize the gravity of who they are and what they're trying to do. But here's the realistic thing. And it was actually Yanni Diakomahalis' dad that said this. He was like, listen, you're a 7-time world champion. All of our goals as fathers is to make our sons better than us. Our kids, period, women and men, to make them better than us. How could I possibly expect my son to be better than me? As a competitor, I say this with seriously. And so, you know, for me, it's teaching him how to be a good young man, teaching him how to develop toughness, teaching him to respect and appreciate the sport, how to operate with grace and character and integrity. And those are the biggest things that we try to preach at our academy. Teach risk, courage, bravery, and trying to go out there and see who you are today and how we can elevate you to a different person moving forward. And so it's not easy. Losing stinks, and he feels it. He cries after every time he loses. But what he does do is he recognizes there's a way for him to get back and get better and beat the guys who once beat him. And I think when he's done that, it's really changed his perspective on himself in the sport.
Yeah, and it'll transcend the sport as well. So Neil.
Right. Tim, you started that exchange by saying, other than your Olympic gold medal and world championships, we're the same.
I said we have similarities in our Genesis story.
That was a
This
sentence
is what happens.
never before uttered.
Fake news.
In the history of the world. No. Other than that, we're the same. No.
Well, like you and me, aside from the astrophysics.
I embellished it, yes, you did.
Your long reach, besides those two things, we're basically the same. And my superior styling, just to be honest. But so the question for you is, what have you learned from wrestling, or maybe this takes the form of a flashback looking at your experiences through wrestling that transcended wrestling for you, that really stuck with you? Could be a learning moment. I certainly have a few of those. It could be just something that was instilled in you, but something that you really see carrying over outside of what you already said.
Yeah, a few simple points. One of them, I guess in modern times they call it grit, because often when you see successful people, you might think they were just born successful or always successful, when in fact most successful people have had profound failures in their life. And what distinguishes those who succeed from those who don't are those who come back from failure. And that's, in modern times, they call that grit. And so wrestling, the grit that is required, because like I said, when you get beat, you're on your back, you just got beat. Are you going to come back from that? Are you going to be better than that on returning? And that lesson applies to everything in life. It doesn't matter. It applies to everything. There's a book I'm in the middle of writing right now, so it's kind of just in my head, but it has to do with my academic path, where my grades in school were just kind of average. I was always academically ambitious, though, but academic ambition doesn't convert necessarily to a grade on an exam. So because my grades were not the highest in the class, no teacher ever would have said, tell us about Tyson here. Oh, watch him, he'll go far. Said no teacher ever. Okay? And so am I going to just assume they know what they're saying or doing, or do I have my own confidence in myself? You need that. You don't become great because other people say you're great. You become great because you bust your ass on your own, and you're driven. And so there I was, driven. And so now people say, oh, you're smart, and you're this, and you're that. Okay, but like I said no one with academic authority and power in the history of my life. I'm where I am not because of the encouragement given to me, but in spite of discouragement that was throughout. And so when I encounter something that feels insurmountable, or when forces are operating against me, I just think of my time on the wrestling mat. It's when you feel weak and the person feels strong, but maybe you have strength that they don't know you have yet. Summon it, reach for it, train for it. So it has impacted everything in my life. At any time I need to achieve, I just reflect on my I can't call it a wrestling career, excuse me, but my years wrestling. I just think back on it, and that gets me through.
So you're both super busy.
Well, I have to add,
yes.
In college I majored in physics, so you really know center of mass and tipping. So I knew exactly the instant where you being out of balance, you would just fall. And so I don't have to do more than that. You will just fall. So I was able to bring my physics to my wrestling. That was fun. And there was a move. I got to put it in there because our announcer mentioned it. I invented a move that I never actually performed in a match, but somebody should do this because I think it's cool. So you may know that the moon only shows one face towards us at all times. So there's a near side of the moon and a far side of the moon. We have tidally locked the moon. That's a natural state of orbiting bodies. We have tidally locked it. The moon is trying to tidally lock us, but it's not going to succeed before the end of the universe. Some objects successfully tidally lock each other, where they only show the same face. So that's called a double tidal lock. And I said, that ought to be a wrestling move. A double tidal lock.
I like the sound of it.
So I thought about how you would do that. And so you lock up with your opponent. You're like, both arms are locked in, but I know what I'm about to do and you don't, okay? So I'm not doing this with, no,
Tim,
stay there.
Tim.
Do not get out of that chair.
Let's see it.
Oh, okay,
You want to
right,
demo?
right,
Here,
right,
let me hold
right.
you. You want me to hold your mic?
Okay.
Here, go ahead.
Hang on here. Okay, no, here. So we're locked up like this, okay? Okay?
Not a good position.
Oh, right, okay. We're locked up. But I know, okay? I know what we're facing each other, right? In a double tidal lock, the system rotates. Okay, so watch. Okay, we're double tidally locked. Then I begin to rotate. And as I rotate, I take them down. Okay, we'll keep going. Come back. Okay, come back. So as I rotate, I take them down. And as we go down, thanks for letting me execute that move.
Double title lock, world debut. This is an exclusive.
Beautiful.
So the good thing about that is the hold that takes you down is the pinning hold. So there's no, there's no other maneuver.
Very elegant.
I'm glad. Thank you for staying put in that chair right there.
That was amazing. Amazing.
One last thing I have to say.
Of course.
In college, during one holiday stretch, I stayed at school. But everyone else is gone, so there are not many people to work out with on the team. And there was someone who was visiting family who was a wrestler, and you get some fresh blood in there, it's always good. It was a guy who was a little heavier than I was, and actually a lot heavier, but I was the only guy heavy enough to spar with him, okay? So I didn't know who he was. I locked with him, okay, got into a hole, and it was like, oh my gosh. I have never touched a person in my wrestling life that had that much balance and presence on the mat. Instantly, I knew I was in the presence of greatness. I knew, instantly. And I would later learn that he was going to the Olympics. This was 1970, well, we weren't in the 1980 Olympics, but he was on the Olympic team. And I realized this is world class, and I am not world class. And so to be in the presence of greatness forms a very important source of inspiration, where there are heights that you think you've achieved, but there are people who've achieved even higher. And when you just come that close to them, I was deeply inspired and humbled at the same time. Yeah. I've got to remember, I got to look it up. Forgive me. I'll look it up before tonight's out, and I'll let you know.
What was that?
Oh, we're running long. I'm sorry. My story's too long.
We're done? We're out? Okay. All right, well, let me just, I'll just put a bow on it. One sec. No, one more thing. So I would just say that I'm here, and I suspect you guys are here, but I don't want to speak for all of you. And if you just will add kind of a closing comment. I'm here to support this organization because I do believe that wrestling is one of the best. I have not found a better vehicle for training resilience and grit. And life is always going to have a surprise roundhouse for you. And a lot of success, I think, is determined by getting back up, as you guys have said. So I feel it's really important also in the age ranges that we're talking about these critical windows, and that's why I'm here doing this today. Why do you support this organization, Jordan?
Beat the Streets is awesome. I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, right? So when you were a kid, if you were black, you didn't wrestle. Right? You played basketball, you played football. And so I had the unique opportunity to join the Beat the Streets wrestling program in 2011. Since then, I've been Beat the Streets Cleveland, Baltimore, LA, New York City, Philadelphia. Like, we've literally been all around the country helping to promote this cause, because I've been in the trenches and I've seen what it's like for these young kids in these underserved areas. And they really need to get into wrestling rooms. There's no other sport in the world, that teaches character development, honor, integrity, perseverance, consistency like wrestling. And so the beauty of that is it's the sport I love most. And I get a chance to be an ambassador and a leader within it. And we're thankful for all of your support and everyone being here tonight, because what it does is it breaks generational curses. It breaks the cycle of poverty, and it helps to get young men in a place, and young women in a place where they can be positive contributors to society and do special things through the sport.
Hear, hear. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. And thanks to these two fine gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, our panelists, Tim Ferriss, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Jordan Burroughs. Let's give a big hand.